Awurama was very attractive, sexy and beautiful girl who lived in a community called Asanyeso in the western part of Ghana many years ago. She was very hardworking and intelligent, very smart and polite, and the only child of her parents. Her beauty and good character caught the attention of all the guys living in the village, and she was the woman every guy in the village had wanted to marry. And because of this, all her female friends in the village were jealous of her and they started gossiping about her. So because of this, she decided to be walking alone, going everywhere alone, doing everything alone for her peace of mind. Awurama didn't find love in her village among all the guys living there because she was not interested in any of them. So there was a river at the village called River Tano, which served the people for drinking, washing, and farming because the river was very clean and beautiful, because by then there was no galamsey activity that could destroy the water like they have polluted it today. So Awurama used to go to the river alone, sometimes go there to fetch, sometimes go there to wash, and sometimes go there to bath. So there was a spirit or a merman living inside the river called Kofi, because Friday was his soul day, and for that reason nobody in the village was allowed to go to the river on Fridays. Awurama was always happy and joyful whenever she goes to the river, whether to fetch, to swim, or to bath. So she found comfortability there because when she goes to the village, her female friends were always teasing and gossiping about her. So she used the river as her refuge. So one Friday, out of peer pressure and depression, Awurama went to the river to swim and bath. So unfortunately, the water spirit or the merman was also coming out of the river to perform rituals because it was Friday. So he saw Awurama, the beautiful lady, in the water, and he was so attracted to her and couldn't get his eyes out of her. So he appeared to Awurama and asked her, "Don't you know today is Friday and is the day for the gods of the river? So what are you doing in the river whilst you know no human being is supposed to come to the river on Friday?" So Awurama politely replied to the merman that there was no water in the house and her father is very sick and could die tonight as a result of thirst. Even though Awurama got his heart with her beauty, but the merman was still angry, so he carried her the water and asked her to go home immediately. So the next day, Awurama came to the river to fetch water as usual. Even though it was a normal day, but she was still afraid because of what she saw yesterday. So when the water spirit saw Awurama the next day in the river, he came to her and there was love in his eyes towards Awurama. So he told her not to be afraid. So he started vibing Awurama, telling her mysteries and so many deeper things about the river that Awurama didn't know. So he went on telling Awurama the other beings and spirits that live in the river and how dangerous it is for a woman who is menstruating to come in the river or to come in the river on Fridays. He said when he saw her on that Friday, he was actually coming to kill her, but because of her beauty and the kind of love he had for her, that's why he changed his mind. He also started performing some magics in front of Awurama, and then Awurama also started falling in love with the merman. It was actually getting late, so he carried her the water and asked her to go home and come back the next day. When Awurama went home, she couldn't sleep the whole night. She kept thinking about the sweet words the merman told her in the river. It was getting very late in the night and Awurama began to be very scared because the merman told her that every late of the night, the water spirit and other beings in the river always come into the village to be roaming and be protecting the village. Immediately, she heard the dogs barking and making noise in the village, so Awurama rushed into the room and slept. So the next morning, she went to the river and the merman saw her and went and proposed to her. Awurama was also in love with the merman, but she told him to go and see her parents because before this, she had already told him about the customs and the culture or the way of life of the people who were living in the village. The merman didn't want to go because he did not want people to see him, but Awurama insisted because she was in love. So when Awurama went home, she told her parents about the man that wants to marry her and promised to come home and see her parents. So the next morning, Awurama went to the river to bring her husband to the village to see her parents. And when they got to the village, the people were amazed and they all started following and singing after them. So they finally got home And Awurama introduced the man to her parents that this is the man that wants to marry her. Awurama's parents were very angry and said this is an abomination, so they didn't agree the marriage and they chased the man out of the village. The man was very furious, didn't understand the customs and the culture of men, and went back to the river. So Awurama, who had fallen in love with the man, followed him to the river and told her to give her time as she was going to convince her parents to understand this marriage. She even promised the man that if her parents refused to understand the marriage, she would leave the village and join him in the river and spend the rest of her life there, since she was not being treated well in the village. So the man was pleased with what Awurama said, so they started kissing and making love in the river, and he took Awurama on a tour in the river, showing her some places that she never knew in the river. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as I will continue the story to the end, and the next decision of her parents will even shock you. Let's stay connected.